Time to talk Nebraska football here at MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. We bring in the best bloggers, broadcasters, and writers in the nation. Of course, analysis from myself as well. To do Nebraska football talk right, we got Greg Peterson on the line. You can join him on Husker Online. Also does work for Rivals. Greg, how you doing today?
Doing okay. How about you, Mark?
I am doing just fine. My goodness. So last week's game, unfortunately, going the wrong way in the second half, but I thought it was probably the most entertaining game of the day. I did not see the first half. Noon games had spilled into that window and overtime games. And by the time I caught up to it, I thought, 17-0. Nebraska's going to salt this thing away. And then I really locked in when it got interesting and the big plays just started to hit from both directions in a furious fourth quarter that saw Colorado win 34-31. So my first assessment was I heard about the dominant line play on both sides of the ball for Nebraska offense and defense in the first half, and somehow that got away from them in the second half. They gave up 6 sacks.
Yeah, it was just terrible. It was a nightmare. First half they played pretty well, except for they probably should have been leading that game 24-0, 28-0 at halftime, and that probably would have put Colorado away. But I heard Colorado, the coaching staff thought that Nebraska had given them their best blow, and they were still in the game at 17-0 at halftime, and they were confident coming out in the second half. And boy, all of a sudden the offensive line can't block anybody. You start the second half punting 4 times in a row, and then the turnovers, and it was just a nightmare. And all the momentum was with the Buffaloes there, and you could really see, if you put the tape on and watch that fourth quarter, Nebraska was gassed. The defense was gassed. It doesn't matter what they say. If they said they weren't tired, they obviously were tired. I think that the altitude really affected them. There's really no excuse for that. That's on the coaching staff. But then, when it comes down to overtime, and you don't have either one of your kickers, you got a walk-on punter handling the kicking duties, and he's got to kick a long field goal at the end. No chance. So, there's a lot of things that they're going to need to work on to come out with a win Saturday night here against Northern Illinois.
So, yeah, you bring up the final play in which Adrian Martinez was sacked on third down. I believe it was 3rd and 7. That might have taken it back to like a 3rd and 15, 4th and 15 or 17. So what was your thought there? Because I certainly was thinking, okay, this is a difficult decision. A 4th and 17 is typically about a 5, maybe 10% chance of converting versus the field goal with an inexperienced kicker.
Yeah, well, you saw the outcome. So,
yep. It was a line drive.
It's easy to say go for it now. But, at least, the kid gave it a try. It was an ugly-looking field goal. But, I put that on the offensive line. Maybe Adrian might have held the ball a little bit too long. But, those receivers recovered. And that's another glaring weakness right now is that there's only 2 guys catching balls. I mean, it's J.D. Spielman and it's Wan'Dale Robinson, your duck R position, your slot guys. One true wideout. I think there's been 1 catch all year in the first 2 games from a wideout. And, they've got to start getting some other guys involved. They got to get them involved early and start spreading the ball around a little bit more. Otherwise, and they can't run the ball up between the tackles. All of a sudden, they're not getting anything, and everything's going outside. They're getting big explosive plays. I mean, Maurice Washington looked amazing, but all of a sudden, you're having trouble moving the ball, and it was just the perfect recipe for disaster last Saturday.
Yeah, with the weapons they have, and with Colorado's defense, at least coming into the season and coming into this particular game, not necessarily being hailed as any kind of elite group, you would think that the 3 and outs and the offensive dry spots would be few and far between. Again, with all the athletic talent that Nebraska's got at the skill position. You bring up Mo Washington, and certainly the swing pass that he took on the left side and went 75 yards with responding directly to that 96-yard score was a thing of beauty. It's just well blocked. He took it to the house. It was just a tremendous play by him, and he's been the explosive guy also in the passing game that has kind of supplemented the lack of a third receiver.
Yeah, and I mean that was a thing of beauty, and Husker fans are like, okay, here we go, we got this back now, and it's back in order, but no, all of a sudden they give it up, and Mo, he definitely. He proved what he can do out there, and he is such a weapon. You got to keep giving him the ball, and you also, you got to start getting Dedrick Mills more involved. Maybe getting him some of those explosive plays. It seems like he's just kind of a step behind right now, but with that kind of weapon that Maurice Washington is, you just got to feed him the ball.
Now, the other aspect in this, in terms of second guessing. Had to do with once Nebraska got a stop, they had a touchdown lead at the point? There was about 3.5 minutes left. They had just gotten a touchdown, then got the stop, and then they get the ball back, and they went to the air on play action. And of course, if you convert downfield, then you've bought yourself another 4 downs, and you've got great field position and so forth and so on. And it just appeared as though, and then that might have actually been after the strip on the kickoff. After Nebraska scored, they had the great play by, my goodness, it was a tremendous play by the kid, Taylor Britt, coming from the backside and stripping the ball on the kickoff from Chenault.
Yep.
Then they went play action. Obviously, that stopped the clock, and they were 3 and out and really didn't take any time off the clock.
Yeah, the worst time that you can go 3 and out. I mean, you can salt that game away right there with a couple first downs and suck that clock down. But no, I don't know if it was lack of confidence in the offensive line on being able to move the ball, or I'm kind of at a loss for it. It's just hard to explain, and just the way that whole half went, it was just a downhill landslide, and you were just waiting for them to lose the game. I mean, it didn't look like they wanted to win the game in the fourth quarter, but we'll see. I mean, it's a learning experience, and now kind of the spotlight's off of them, and I think that's a good thing for them. So. See if they can, string some here together and, go in strong here to start the conference season. And, it's going to be a night game this week, so the crowd should be raring to go. And, you can get a chance to bring some recruits in when it's a night game like that. So atmosphere should be special. So we'll see what happens.
Nebraska, Northern Illinois, as Greg mentions, in Lincoln Saturday night. I believe Fox has that game, or FS1. FS1 with that 8 o'clock Eastern time kickoff. So you mentioned the lack of confidence, possibly. That almost seems to speak into what's been the narrative carryover from last season, is the inability to win the close games. I think they're 1-6 now in games decided by less than a touchdown.
But Scott Frost hasn't won a road game yet. He hasn't won a night game yet. So, and they're going into play. They're playing a team that came in here 2 years ago and beat them. And Northern Illinois still got a lot of those players left on their team, so they're not going to be intimidated. They know they can come in here and get a win. So confidence is going to be a big thing. They better be ready to play, because they're going to face a team that is hungry and is a pretty darn good football team too. They gave Utah fits, and they're going to come in here. They're going to run the ball. They got a heck of a running back, and they've got a good defense. So they're going to stack the box against Nebraska. You're going to get a lot of 8-men look up front, and so the offensive line has got to start blocking and start handling these guys. And yeah, that's right now. I'm worried about this game, so my confidence level isn't very high right now. So.
Absolutely. NIU's been a program for a long time that has played with the big boys. No, they don't win those games typically, but they come out of the MAC. They play,
they're defending MAC champions.
Yes, they play 2 or 3 Power Fives typically each and every non-conference schedule, and they, as you mentioned, give them fits. They had a 21-17 lead or 21-17 game against Utah before they gave up a couple late touchdowns, but on the road at Utah, the Pac-12 favorite, and only losing by 4 in the fourth quarter. That's the type of effort they typically bring, and that was the score 2 years ago in Lincoln, 21-17. Northern Illinois pulled off the upset then. And so what would be your they might as well just flood the box, spy Adrian Martinez and take their chances on the outside and maybe give help to one of the two sides, probably to the Spielman side,
Probably.
and take their chances from there.
Yeah. You know, they're they know what they want to do. They know what they're good at, and you know, Nebraska's going to have to counter that, and you know, come up with some new ideas on how to attack this defense. You know, on the other side of the ball, you know, their offense, they've got an experienced offense, a lot of guys coming back on that line, and they're going to grind it out. You know, they're going to limit possessions for Nebraska. They're going to slow the game down. So, you know, Nebraska's going to have to be explosive, you know, and try to get out to a sizable lead and just kind of play from there. So we'll see. We'll see.
So, Greg, we alluded to the kicking situation, which was not good last week, and it's become even worse. And now Scott Frost is going all over the place on campus to try to find somebody that can kick it through the 2 posts.
Yeah, it looks like he found somebody because right now, going into the game, starting place kicker Barrett Pickering's not even on the depth chart this week. And then your second string kicker, Dylan Jorgensen, is mysteriously now hurt too. And so the punter, Isaac Armstrong, who had to handle those kicking duties in Colorado, all of a sudden is banged up too in practice this week. So it's a mess. If you thought the Chicago Bears had a strange kicking situation this preseason, Nebraska's got them beat by a long shot. Scott Frost told us today that he went a couple of days ago. He went to the club soccer team, he gave them a call and asked if they had anybody that had kicked before, and they had a few people, and they came in for tryouts. And so now they're going through all the motions of getting Trevor Yanovich on the team. Like I said, he's from the club soccer team. He kicked in high school at Omaha Gross Catholic, and he was also a 2-time state soccer player. So he's got experience at the position, and he's going to be suited up on Saturday for Nebraska. Dream come true. He's a junior education major, so now he's a Husker.
Now he's a Husker. He can suit up with a proud red and white on his back and put himself officially on the roster and in the record books, hopefully in a good way for Nebraska fans. A 36-point favorite against South Alabama. That was a 2-touchdown game. Last week, a 4.5-point pick on the road by Vegas, and they lose in overtime. So it's a 14-point spread, and I'm sure Vegas has taken the kicking woes into consideration, but a 2-touchdown favorite. So they're a substantial favorite, but at the same time, we've seen a number of double-digit underdogs already win this season. So certainly possible.
We'll just hope they score 14 points.
Yeah, they got to bring that offense and bring all those skill position players, but you need the blocking up front, and that's where the fan bases typically start to pay attention to an offensive line, is when it's not working on offense, and the rest of the time those guys are nameless. But it's the most important unit, I think, most of the time on the field, those 5 guys that need to work together. All right, we get our weekly take on Nebraska football from Greg Peterson on Husker Online. You got to check out his work and everybody else there at Husker Online. Greg, we appreciate you stopping by.
Hey, no problem. Thanks, Mark. We'll see you next week.